Good morning, New Vision Center. My name is Reverend Lezli. I am the Associate Minister here, and I am delighted to be with you today as the culmination of the most delightful weekend that involved, among many things, two beloveds in this community who have been working and working and working and loving and sharing and supporting and serving for somewhere between 5 and infinity years, going through lots of classes and serving on multiple teams and studying and doing 2 years of practitioner training and passing a licensing exam, and yesterday passing consciousness panels to become official professional licensed practitioners of religious science. So let's give some love to Rachel Sartori and Maureen Garrity. That's just fun. That just never gets less fun. So delightful. All right, I also have to give a message today. So if you happened to watch or attend last week, you will remember that we talked about making meaningful change. We talked about this idea that our thoughts, our ideas, and our beliefs inherently come together to impact how we behave. And if we want to behave differently, if we want to experience life differently through our own actions, then we probably better check in with those feelings, ideas, and beliefs, yes? Now there's another half of that equation, and it's our worldview. So our beliefs, ideas, and thoughts are relatively conscious, and our worldview is a little bit less so. So we're going to be playing once again with our idea of every path leads home, and so let's look at some of the paths that we might be playing with today. So we're looking at the path of self-acceptance, because if we don't know who we are and accept it, it's not going to get us very far, is it? We're going to play with the paths of loving kindness and connection, because we're going to talk about other people's worldviews as well. And we're going to play with this path of personal responsibility, because at the end of the day, if we want life to show up differently for us and as us, whose work is that? It's ours. It's ours. Wouldn't it be great if we could just determine what they should do differently so that I feel better? Anybody ever try that? It's so effective. It just doesn't work, does it? The big changes happen on the inside of ourselves. So we have to look at our worldview. Now, the anthropologist Paul G. Hiebert, social scientist, he defined worldview this way. He says it's the fundamental cognitive, affective, and evaluative presuppositions a group of people make about the nature of things, which they use to order their lives. That sounds like something I would write, and then I would have to go back and put English words instead, right? Fundamental cognitive, thoughts, affective, feelings, and evaluative, choice-making, judgment, discernment, presuppositions. That means they're assumptions. They're happening before we're conscious of them. This is the underlying grid of our ideas about the way the world are that are put in there before we think about it. Ooh, before we ever even think about it, there is this, the way the world is. And the challenge about it being presuppositions is we do not question it. Unless we, say, for example, hypothetically attend a service in which a minister challenges us to question it, which could happen right now. But most of the time we don't. That's the way life is. They are not the kinds of things that people tend to question. And then when we find that we are in conflict between two groups of people or multiple groups of people, and we're having an argument, but it is not the same conversation. Has anybody ever landed in that? Where it's very clear that people are not speaking the same language. Usually what is happening is we have a worldview conflict. Now, it's important that we start at the very beginning, which is, in fact, a very good place to start. It's just, I will never stop doing that. It's just not a surprise that above, talk about a few worldviews ago, above the Temple of Apollo, as you went to meet with the Oracle of Delphi, you passed under an arch that said, "Know thyself," because you can't know anything until you know yourself. So we need to figure out what our worldview is. So let's play with that idea. Are you in with me? Fantastic. So first, we have to recognize that we have a worldview, which takes a little bit, because that inherently means taking a moment and pausing and thinking every single thing that I think is an absolute given in this world is an opinion. All of it. All of it is an opinion. Now, it might be the opinion of my parents or my grandparents or my great-grandparents or the heads of the church that I grew up in or the temple I grew up in. It could be the ideas of the political leaders or the writers that I read when I was young. It could be from the country of origin I'm from, or my parents or my grandparents. It could be from my neighborhood. It could be from the kind of education I had. But every single thing we ever encounter is feeding our worldview. And these are the things we do not question. And we are just full of facts. Facts. I am full of facts. Oh my gosh, Bill Sneed and I had a conversation yesterday with a whole bunch of people in which we went on this wild tangent about Zoroastrianism and angels in ancient Judaism. And the rest of the table was looking at us like, what? And we were in the land of facts. And everybody else was in the land of hamburgers. It's so funny the way the things that we know them. They're inarguable. They're inarguable. However, they're almost always arguable. So let's play with a couple things that we all know. We all know these things. We only use 10% of our brain. Did you know that was proven wrong about a year after that study came out in the 70s? And yet, how many movies and books and theories and philosophies and classes and self-help books have we almost all played in? If only we could use more of our brain. We use all the parts of our brain. Do we use every part to its fullest extent every moment? Of course not. That sounds exhausting. But, in the inside of yourself, let you raise your imaginary hand. Is that something that if I had said and not followed it up, you would have been like, yeah. Yeah. How many movies are based on that alone with cutie pies, like Bradley Cooper starring in them? It was never true. Bulls get mad when they see the color red. Do you see the picture in your head with the matador and and here comes the bull? And it's the bright, bright red to get them all riled up, right? Bulls are red-green colorblind. What gets them going is the movement of the cloth. Why is it red? People can see it from far away in the stands. It could be a gray cloth. No, the bulls don't care. The Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th, 1776. The copy we're used to seeing was written fancily on July 4th, 1776. It was actually signed on August 2nd, 1776. Ooh. I'm willing to bet that everyone in this room, or the vast majority of us, would have gone to the mat on at least one of those facts that aren't true. And almost nothing else we think is either objectively, permanently, entirely, and unequivocally true. So we're taking a breath. We're taking a breath. in order to make the space for finding places of peace in relationship with people with a different worldview, we have to be willing to acknowledge that our worldview is just that. It's a set of assumptions based on how we grew up and what we've known to this point. And we have to be open to softening it and making space. Our worldview is just our basis for the assumptions that we're carrying with us. But unexamined, it affects every decision we make. It affects every judgment we have. It impacts how we interact with everyone around us. It determines whether we think someone else is a good or bad person. Ooh, feel that. Feel that. And so we ask ourselves, as we let ourselves see what we think is true as a set of assumptions, does my worldview reflect who I am now? Or is it just a pile of stuff I've dragged with me into where I stand today? We believe in science of mind, in an infinite spirit, a consciousness that does not have an opinion. And man, do we get mad about that in classes with Reverend Lezli. I hear about it sometimes. What do you mean? What do you mean there's no such thing as evil? What do you mean God doesn't have a specific plan for my life that I'm supposed to walk out exactly? And if I don't, I am in sin and I will be punished and go to hell. And I get to say, no sin, no punish, no hell, no evil, no bad, no opinion. And yeah, I get some weird looks sometimes, friends. But that's what science of mind teaches, that the intention for humanity is freedom to express absolutely free the fullness of the divinity within us in a way that is supportive of life, meaning loving and kind. And how we do that is completely outside of the opinion of the divine. You can be a minister. We can be a singer. We can play bass like Vic. Right? We could be a yoga studio owner and instructor par excellence like Amy. We could be a teacher. We could be a stay-at-home mom. We could take really excellent naps. So good. We can bake loaf after loaf of extraordinarily subpar attempts at gluten-free bread. It's not getting better, folks. I have baked about 8 hockey pucks, but I will win. The divine does not have an opinion. So why are we holding on to our worldview so firmly when the energy that is the source of who and what we are doesn't care? Why are we so worried about being right, being sanctimonious and righteous and good? You know, there's a big difference between being good and being good, right? You hear the difference? I'm good. Why is it that when we're worried about being good, we're also kind of mean? Maybe it's the facial expression. So, as we question, is my worldview reflecting who I am now? It causes us to look at the world around us, at other people's worldviews, right? Because every single person has one. If you think someone around you doesn't have one, it's because they have yours. Right? And how do we know? How do we know if we are in a worldview conflict with someone? It's when we say things like, I laugh because this is directly out of things I've actually said in my life. Any sane person would agree with me. My poor ex-husband. Let's all take a moment. Oh, poor Jeff. Because I was right. In the mean voice, I was right. When we look at someone and think, that's an insane thing to do. No good person, no nice person would do that, think that, have that. Who would wear white to another person's wedding? British people, who don't have the same rule. In fact, a lot of times they intentionally dress their bridesmaids in white. I know, because Pippa Middleton looked so adorable in that little white gown. Things that are just a given in your world, maybe they're not for somebody else. And things play into our worldview like neurodivergence. I had a really wonderful, terrible conversation with someone once that went something like, "You're intentionally drowning me in information," and me saying, "I can't help you if I don't have the information." And it went back and forth, and it turned out that that person is on the autism spectrum. And literally, it was too much information for this person to be able to be in the conversation without being completely pulled out of it. And I felt adamantly that I didn't have enough information to give them what they needed. And it back and forth and back and forth. And I think both of us had our dukes up ready to go because the other one was being awful. Except nobody was being awful. We were coming from different worldviews. Every once in a while, especially when we're talking about radical inclusivity, which is a huge thing here at New Vision Center, that we are radically inclusive, that there is absolutely nothing you could do, say, be, believe, have experienced, anything that can put you outside of the infinite love of the divine and therefore outside of the belongingness in this community. And I get follow-up questions like, what about radical Muslims? Worldview, right? Because picture with me this infinite divinity with no opinion. The whole world, everything is love, everything is, and we zoom in and we zoom in, love, 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 except those people. No. We can know the divine truth about everyone without agreeing with their worldview. When we know that the reason we don't agree is because our worldview is in conflict with theirs. Holding someone's worldview as part of the divine doesn't mean we have to agree with it. It simply means that we see the humanity in them, because what could be more human than having a worldview? Than having a set of things we believe and think and know. We can honor our perspective. We can honor our perspective that radical inclusivity is important, essential, demanded by this faith philosophy, while also honoring somebody else's worldview that says that radical inclusivity is wrong, bad, sinful, terrible, going in the wrong direction, because you know there are many worldviews that say that, right? This is something we call spiritual paradox. That two seemingly opposing ideas can be held at the same time. That we can know the divine truth of everyone, the acceptability in the eyes of the one, of everyone, and be a walking out of that for everyone, even while knowing that that person's worldview directly would not give you the same grace. This is why we call this teaching the cutting edge of consciousness, the green growing edge of high intention. Because we are choosing something that is not easy, but we are choosing something that is valuable and good and real. People ask, why isn't everyone at New Vision Center? This is one of those reasons. Because this is a hard thing to ask of ourselves. To choose to hold high those who would not hold us high. To choose to remember every breath, every thought, every day, every action, that we are one in the one. That we are all one in the one. And to build, moment by moment, a worldview that allows us to hold both sides with nice, soft, open hands. Not this. Nice, soft, open consciousness. And so we breathe. Basically what this comes down to is a doubling down on that idea. I said it a while ago, I'm still getting feedback. I'm going to get more feedback. I am ready for feedback. That rugged individualism is a failed American experience. It's an experiment that just doesn't work. Does that mean nobody can be independent? Of course not. I'm super independent. It drives my husband nuts. But to think we're supposed to do it alone, go it alone, be the one who's right, run over everybody else, it doesn't work. We're communal animals. We're supposed to be doing this life in community. And there are certain things we cannot learn in isolation. There's a reason humans come together in groups all the time. And it's not only because we share a worldview, because largely in a place like this, we probably do share, the greater majority of our worldview. But even as I look around, I see people who grew up in other countries from me. I see people who grew up in different religions than me. I see people who grew up in different generations than me. I see people who grew up in different political parties than I was raised in. Even in a place where we probably share 80% of the same ideals, I'm going to get feedback at that door. Because that's what we do, is we share our truth together and we hold it. Because we can. Because we choose to be people who live that way. Ernest Holmes said it like this. For anyone who does not know, Ernest Holmes is the founder of this teaching and the writer of the book, The Science of Mind. And if you hear us say science of mind a million times every service, it's because that's the book that kind of laid out this philosophy. He said this: we need to fall so deeply in love with life that we will surrender the egotistical, intellectual concept that a person lives unto themselves as an individual. I'm going to read it again, because I really want this to land. We need to fall so deeply in love with life that we will surrender the egotistical, intellectual concept that a person lives unto themselves as an individual. We are individuals, but we do not live individually in little hermetically sealed packets. We breathe together, we grow together, we move together. And so if we wish to live together more peacefully, if we wish our relationships and our experiences to be more peacefully, it's time, my friends, to get curious. To get curious about those people who obviously have a different worldview than we have. And in the moments when we think we're in a conflict with someone with a similar worldview, to get curious there too, because I bet we're going to find where those worldviews differ. And if we can hold that in a place of loving kindness, we have the opportunity to gain a deeper understanding of where each person is coming from. So here are 3 things that I have learned to say or ask that spur curiosity and invite a deeper knowing. Tell me more about that. There are like 5 people nodding aggressively who I have obviously said, tell me more about that to a lot of times. Tell me more about that is when an accusation becomes a conversation, because you get to find out what's underneath that heat or that claim. Share more with me about why you feel that way. As opposed to, no, I didn't, no, I don't, you don't know me. Oh, I insulted you. I'm so sorry. Tell me more about why you feel that way. You're going to find out something new about the person in front of you. And then my favorite, what does that mean to you? You know, underneath all that energy, what does that mean? Why? Why did that push your button? When we're willing to slow down enough to ask those questions, we get to learn more. And the person on the other side is no longer on the other side. And they can feel that you are more interested in finding common ground than in being right. And to me, That is the heart of living in alignment with a divinity that doesn't have an opinion. It's about bringing us together. It's about oneness. Not about being right, not about winning. It's about being one in that oneness. And so this is the invitation. I am a well-trained minister who knows to never end a service without a call to action. Are you ready for it? To choose to be the love that affirms oneness. When we bump against those worldview conflicts, when we bump against a place where we're not having the same conversation, to choose to center into the oneness, into the love, and then to open up in that place where we can hold the divine paradox widely enough and invitingly enough that people will answer those questions and join in an actual conversation that brings more peace. Choose to be the love, and so it is. Let's anchor this in with some prayer. Oh, what a delight it is to just be in the presence of an infinite spirit that is all love, all peace, all acceptance, where there is nothing that need be excluded or shut out or made wrong or made less. What a joy it is to sit in the energy of absolute good, to know that the entire universe is conspiring to bring forth joy and peace and loving kindness. That any issue we brought into this space on our hearts or our minds is even right now being healed in our consciousness by a divinity that always says yes. Yes to physical wholeness. Yes to emotional support. Yes to expansive creativity. Yes to whatever our soul is pulling from us, pushing us toward. It's all being met right where we are by this infinite good, this divine good. And I'm so grateful to know it for each and every one within the sound of my voice. And I call it all delightful and good. As we claim it, we say, and so it is.